Well, um, geez, I just want to say thanks so much for having me do this. I get so excited. I love talking about forestry. And boy, I tell you, if I had a resource like this to reference when I was trying to figure out my direction in life, this would have been just a fantastic thing to have. So thanks so much for having me. My name is Amy Morales, and I am right now, I'm a forester for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Just a little bit about me and how things came to be. I grew up in farm country, Wisconsin. So, we had woodlots and stuff, and I loved playing in the woodlots. And my dad would take me up to northern Wisconsin, deer hunting and fishing and all that kind of stuff. And I just, my whole life, I've just kind of gravitated towards the woods. So I went to college, but I thought I was going to be a civil engineer because that's a real logical thing to do, right? A couple years into it, just it was okay. I just didn't have my passion. So uh, rather than taking a year off of school and really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I went up to Vermilion Community College in Ely, Minnesota, took some classes, and I really just kind of focused on classes that I knew I would enjoy and that, really struck a chord with me and my passion. And they all ended up being natural resources. And so I went on to actually Northern Michigan University, ended up with a bachelor's degree in forest ecology, which is the study of kind of how everything in the forest is related to each other. Great degree. I loved it. But with a general degree like that, it encouraged me to go on to grad school. Luckily, in graduate school, I had a advisor that saw my applied interests, and he said, "Amy, I really think you should take some forestry classes." And I thought, forestry, logging, like, I don't. That's really not for me. I didn't really know what it was about. And I got into it and my first few classes in the hardcore forestry track, and I just knew instantly, this is it. This is how I take my interests and I apply them on the ground. And yeah, and it was just, that's all she wrote from there. So I've been a professional forester for almost 20 years. I started as an industrial forester working for a paper mill out of Minnesota, but living in Wisconsin and basically working with loggers to procure wood, buy wood, get it cut and delivered to the mill. I was there for probably 5, 6 years, and then I've been with the Wisconsin DNR since then. So I'll just go into a little bit of what I do on a daily basis. Um, oh well, let me back up a second. Really, forestry. Like I said, I didn't grow up knowing what forestry really was. I knew that we cut trees and stuff like that, but didn't really understand how it all worked and that there was a term for it, really, even. So forestry there's a lot of different ways to describe it, but I like this definition by the Society of the American Foresters. It's the merging of the science of managing forests and the conservation of those forests, and it incorporates clean water, forest products, recreation, urban areas, and all of that to, foster greener communities. So okay, so a little bit about what I do. My official title is the Washburn County Forest Liaison. Here in northern Wisconsin is where Washburn County is situated. We have 155,000 acres of county-owned forest. That makes us one of the largest public county forests in Wisconsin. And that forest is used for just a plethora of things. And that's why we call it a multi-use managed forest. It's recreation, trails, hiking, biking, ATV, UTV, snowmobile, hunting, fishing, skiing, just berry, foraging, that kind of stuff. And then also we're managing it for economic products like logs and pulp that gets used to make paper and all that kind of stuff. A unique thing about the Wisconsin County Forest Program is the way that it's managed in partnership with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. So I spend most of my time on the county forest, but I'm the DNR side of the partnership, and we work together. It's great because the DNR has resources that the counties can rely on as far as specialists and stuff like that. So that in a nutshell is just a broad thing about what my position entails. So specifically, some of the more specific things I do when it comes to forest management is forest recon, which means going out and measuring the forest, mapping the forest. We gather a lot of data, we analyze that data. Sometimes we do experiments, because that's one cool thing about forestry is it's not cookie cutter. There's no recipe. It's always changing. We're always learning. So that's a lot of what I do is data processing, gathering all that information. And I love maps. I love maps. So, and we use that information. The bulk of our program here, it's a working forest. So we are harvesting trees, but we try to do that in the most sustainable way possible. We are incorporating things like wildlife, water resources, forest health. So whether there's insect and disease issues, we incorporate all that into our decision-making processes. Archaeological resources, we make sure that none of that is compromised. Of course, economics. Washburn County Forest, we have timber sales where we sell timber to loggers twice a year, and we average $1.5 to $2 million per timber sale. So, and that all comes back to the county and gets used for a whole bunch of different things, really, to support the county. And of course, social. We incorporate things like aesthetics and things like recreation trails and all that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of these pictures, just FYI, are ones that I've had the privilege of taking. That's my son in the middle there hunting on a timber sale that I set up. So, and then, after harvesting, we establish new forests. Sometimes those new forests come in the way of planting, which is the picture on the left there. That's a planting crew, and that's a red pine seedling that's just been put in the ground. Sometimes that new forest comes naturally, like the red oak seedlings that you see on the right there. So every forest is a little different, and based on our landowner objectives, what we want to perpetuate into the future. But it's not ever just cut and walk away. It's very thoughtful and future oriented. So some of the other things that I do when I'm not working on Washburn County Forest is I'm also involved in a wildland fire control program. In the spring here, it's very dry and we have wildfire season, and I help out with that, whether it means swinging a shovel, whether it means running a fire, being incident commander, or working on project fires in the command post. I get involved with it all. So, and that's a lot of forestry jobs, especially with the Wisconsin DNR, get some sort of fire, whether it be prescribed burning or wildfire control.
And my understanding is that the more managed a forest is, and with things like prescribed burns and doing the regular harvesting, the more you're able to control and hopefully keep from having wildfire spread. Is that correct?
Yep, that is, yes, because then we're utilizing a lot of that fuel instead of letting it just build up on the ground and stuff like that. Yep. But the way that Wisconsin is, with the urban and wildland interface and cabins all over the place, it's a pretty important part of our jobs too. And there are some forester positions that don't have fire. It just all depends on where you're located, basically. I'm also part of, as I mentioned, an incident command team. Forestry in the Wisconsin DNR really leads the charge on our organizational structure in managing natural disasters and sometimes even planned events, large planned events. So things like search and rescues and events like tornadoes or big, large scale blowdowns, real large scale fires, of course. And a lot of us go out west and work with some of the bigger events to get trained and maintain our training and stuff like that. And then, of course, a little bit of education and outreach. This is a log a load event where the local school kids get to go out and watch some of the forest processes and work, and it's just a great thing. So that was my position, but the cool thing about forestry is there's so many different ways to be involved in forestry. Like I said, I used to be an industrial forester, so I work for a paper mill. And that is one avenue, and we've got a lot of those around Wisconsin, of course, whether it be a paper mill or a sawmill or any kind of wood utilizing facility. Private consultants that work with private landowners, a lot of that. Urban foresters, we have urban foresters that work with our cities to maintain, tree health and build green spaces and help them with grants and all that kind of stuff. Public lands forester, of course, that's mostly what I am, but we also have state lands that need forestry management, federal lands, so a lot of opportunity there. Research, of course, like I said, we're always learning, and maybe even with climate change and that kind of stuff changing and invasive species, there's always questions to be answered, and making sure that we're always doing the right thing. Forest health, insects, disease, a real important thing that we have that we work with. Forest hydrology, I've got a forest hydrologist across the hall from me. So a lot of times it's, working, we need to harvest a stand of timber, but we don't want to compromise a wetland system in order to do it. So we work with forest hydrologists to, whether there's a time of year or a way to build a road that makes it more sustainable. One thing too about all these opportunities in forestry, I've had a wildlife biologist, we all very related, natural resources, but there's a wildlife biologist here, and she covers 2 counties basically, and our fisheries biologist is kind of the same way. He covers 2 counties, maybe 3. So when you start talking about professions and natural resources, I think we did the math one time, and it's double-digit numbers of foresters per, say, wildlife biologist or fisheries biologist, and really we're out there managing the habitat as much, if not more. In fact, the wildlife biologist said she was a little jealous because she deals with dead animals most of the time, where we get to deal with the live ones, and have an influence on their habitat. But we work very hand in hand with fisheries and wildlife and all that stuff too. So that was kind of it in a nutshell. But I just wanted to throw into some of my whys, why I just love being a forester. In fact, one of my boys, probably a year ago, said, "Mom, if you could do anything, if you could have any job, what would it be?" And I had a really hard time thinking of anything else that I would rather do. I just really do love my job. So I pinch myself sometimes that I get paid to do it, because this is on a regular, paid day. I get to look at stuff like that. And a lot of times I'll snap a picture and send it to my dad and say, "You know what, Dad, thanks, because, you opened me to this kind of stuff, and it led me down this career path." So, certainly though, there are days where the mosquitoes are out and it's hot. But that's a great thing too, is I have enough office work to keep me busy on those kind of days. Not that I'm a fair weather forester, but you really can make it work so that there's certainly, we all have to put up with some bugs and heat, but so these are just kind of some of the things that I get to see on a daily basis. Another thing though, so this is lunch break on the Totogatek River. The people that I work with, this is another thing why I love my job, is I get to work with people who are passionate about the same kinds of things that I am. And just the conversation around the office it's always intriguing to me. It's always got to do with hunting or fishing, which isn't all of it, but it's, about trees and nature and maple syruping, and they all go wild ricing. And so it's really, it's who you surround yourself with too. And some of them are goofballs. This is just us out in the field having a good time marking some trees. I'm amazed every day by just, nature and stuff like that. Baby porcupine, who else gets to see that? So, and that's not a rare occurrence either. And of course, when you work around natural resources, people stop into the DNR with just amazing things. So, yep, we always know where the best mushroom foraging is too. And so then there's also the other like responsible consumer part of it. This is a stand of aspen that I had a logging crew cut one of my very first years as a professional forester, and I went back a few years ago, and you can see how much it's grown. And that was basically starting from nothing, those aspen trees there. And I just, we're all consumers, and it makes me feel good that I can be a part of making sure that our forests are managed in a healthy way that'll last for generations to come. So if you are interested in forestry, here's a few resources for you. In Wisconsin anyways, you're really never very far from a Wisconsin DNR ranger station, no matter where you are in the state. They're scattered throughout the landscape, and most foresters are like me. They love to talk about forestry. So stop by, have a visit, well, I guess in today's day and age, I'd say get a hold of them first, But yeah, that's a great resource. And everybody would be more than happy to share with you. So the Society of American Foresters has a great website with a lot of resources too for people looking to explore forestry. And as far as college goes here in the Lake States, these are really kind of the major ones. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but these are the main ones. And most forester positions do need a bachelor's degree. There are a few avenues to go around it with an associate's degree and some complementary classes type thing. But yeah, the main route is through a bachelor's degree. And yeah, just to recap, a forester studies the forest, we protect the forest, and we manage the forest.
Awesome. So about what would be the percentage, would you think, of women that are in forestry?
When I started, 15, 18 years ago, not very many. I was the only one that worked for our paper mill. Coming to the state, there was a handful of us around, but in the last 10 years, it's gotten to where it used to be a hiring class. There was maybe 2 out of 15, but it honestly seems like now it's almost half, and it's fantastic. So yeah,
well, that's great.
Maybe not quite half, but yes, it's very commonplace. Our chief state forester right now is a female. So
awesome. And for high school students, is there are there any experiences, any classes, any clubs, anything even for them to do on their own that would be just suggestions if they're interested in this as a career field?
Sure. We had an environmental club when I was in high school, something like that. You're probably not going to anything like that where natural resource based. I did a little bit of volunteering at my local DNR once I got into college. Once you get into college, it's those summer jobs that really make a difference. And it's one of those things where you gotta buy your time doing the data collection and going out in the heat and stuff like that, but it really speaks volumes to your dedication to the field or to the field of natural resources. And a lot of opportunities as internships in a lot of these public forests. If fire is the avenue, there's a lot of out west type assignments. There's no shortage of opportunity, and just get out there and put your stamp on it.